so I saw somebody's comment on writing letters, and I have been meaning to, I think I did a video on this a long time ago, so this is a good opportunity to talk about this, and I actually wanted to make an update and revise this, so that's what we're gonna do today. Happy Friday. Let me know if you're here, you can hear me, you can see me. If you want to comment where you're from or say hi, that'd be great, so I know that it's working. So today is a good day to talk about writing letters. Hey Daphne. So we get that quite a bit in the group, and it's totally valid. It's totally a valid conversation. So let's have that conversation about, should you write a letter? Shouldn't you write a letter? If you do decide to write a letter, what do you put in it? What don't, do you want to hold back? Not hold back, right? And you could ruminate on that, and you can, do all kinds of things with that. But let's break it down a little bit to make it hopefully a little bit easier. Okay, so, well, I wouldn't say easier, but more manageable, right? So the first thing about writing, okay, so let's start with this. So this is like pro tip number one. The first thing you have to think about when you're writing the letter is, why are you writing the letter, right? What is the purpose of writing the letter? And number one, and be really, being really honest with yourself, right? So number one, do you want to do it because you're looking for acknowledgement and you're looking for an apology? You are looking for that, from your parent, and you're hoping for an acknowledgement, okay? Get really honest about that. Number two, are you doing it because you have to get this off your chest, right? You have to let them know. And all of these are valid. It's okay. However you feel, or maybe it's a combination, right? So, are you doing it because you want acknowledgement? Are you doing it because you gotta get it off your chest? You want them to know, right? And that's valid too. You just gotta get it. You feel like you gotta get it out on paper. So that, whatever your reason, I would say those are the top two reasons, right? Of why you really feel compelled to write a letter to your parents, okay? Number two is, if you go ahead and write the letter and you send it to them, are you prepared for what may or may not happen? Hey Kelly, are you prepared for what may or may not happen? So what may happen is that you could receive backlash, right? You could receive backlash from your parents. They could get really angry because you're threatening their little safety bubble thing that they've created, right? Hey, Allison. So they could get really angry. They could yell and scream and, call you names. They could tell the whole town, the whole rest of the extended family. They could actually come to your house. I don't know. You guys know what kind of parents you have, right? Only you, and again, you can't minimize, you don't want to minimize what kind of parents you have. So be really honest with yourself about not minimizing what kind of parents you have. I know this is really hard for people because minimizing keeps us, in denial. All right. So really, what kind of parents do you have and what can you expect? I always ask my clients this, and I ask you guys this. What kind of parents do you have? Honestly, what would they do? And be honest. Or will you get the silent treatment and ignoring parent that will never even acknowledge that you got a letter. My dog's barking. That they got the letter from you, right? So that's the other option. That's very painful and very hurtful as well. Very hurtful, very painful. So these are all things to consider when you get started. Okay, so let's focus on these things. I invite you to focus on these things first before you focus on what you want to write about. So that is, can you handle potential backlash or potentially nothing? Silence, right? No acknowledgement. Are you in a mental, physical, emotional state to be able to handle whatever comes? So that's really important to understand. Hey Amanda, so that's that part. So really understanding what potentially could happen if you send the letter based on you knowing your parents and what they are capable of, right? What kind of parents are they? And past experience always predicts future behavior, right? We can predict that. It's not going to change. Our parents are very predictable, actually, if you think about it. And then, again, why are you writing the letter? Are you writing it because you just got to get it off your chest and you really want to get it out there? Or you're writing it because you feel like you want some acknowledgement. You want acknowledgement. And you're hoping to get that. Because that's not in a real empowering place to be, right? So just keeping all that in mind. All right, so now moving on to the actual letter. Hey, Monica. The actual letter. Okay, let me back up for a second before we get to that. So you guys, it's totally up to you if you want to write a letter and send it. Again, I would recommend not writing it if you are in a place of despair, emotionally overwhelmed, nervous system overwhelmed, no capacity, you might not want to do that right now. Maybe at a later point, right? I get to my clients regulated and secure and safe, and then they can write a letter from a much healthier emotional state, right? So maybe down the road we write the letter. And we're coming from our healthy adult self. And that's really empowering, okay? Really empowering. So again, keeping that in mind. But really it's up to you. I'm never going to tell somebody to not write a letter if that's really what you want to do, because you do want to get that off your chest. Yeah, absolutely. I might also suggest, can you get it off your chest by writing that letter and not sending it? So that's another option, writing the letter and not sending it. Can you do that and get it off your chest? And maybe you could burn it or rip it up or just keep it somewhere, right? You don't actually have to send it. So, so I ask people that, and if people are like, no, I gotta do this. I gotta do this. Okay. Cool, then do it, right? So totally up to you, just keeping all these things in mind. So, if you're like, no, I got to get this off of my chest and I got to do it right now, and that's my decision, okay, great, let's do it, and I'll help you, write it out, or if you need help. So that's what we do. So again, it's entirely up to you, just keeping these things in mind. So typically, in my experience, and I've worked with hundreds of people on this, parents, this is sad, okay? This is really sad, but out of all the people I've worked with and all y'all in the group and all that, there's not one parent that said, oh, you know what? I got that letter. Thanks for that. Let's sit down and talk, or let's go to therapy. Nobody's ever done that. Hey, Angie. Nobody has ever done that in my experience. Anybody that I've worked with, anybody that I've talked to, no parent has received a letter and said, yeah, okay, you're right, I did those things, and it's time to go to therapy and work this out. Nobody's ever done that, okay? So just That's the facts. It's sad. It's the nature of trauma and family of origin trauma and dysfunctional families. So nobody has ever acknowledged anything. So again, keeping that in mind when you write a letter. So, all right, so getting back to what do I put in the letter? And again, it's really up to you, but assuming that they're not going to respond, or they might respond with backlash and anger, and then, you know what, oftentimes they don't even read it, to be honest, or they definitely don't get past the first page. So if it's like a 20-page letter, I can almost guarantee they aren't going to read that, because what happens is they don't have the capacity to get past the first couple of sentences. They're not going to have the capacity to sit there and read the whole letter and be comfortable enough in their own body to do that. So they will read maybe a sentence or two, but most of the time they are not even going to read that letter, because they don't have the capacity to hold that, right? That's what they're trying to avoid. They're trying to avoid that at all costs. Their survival depends on that, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't be not talking to their own children. Their survival depends on not examining that, not facing that, at the detriment of going, having their children never talk to them again. You are confronting them with their trauma. You are confronting them with their trauma, and that is a threat to their safety, okay? Now, they're not conscious of this, right? But that's what's happening in but they don't even know it. They're not consciously aware of that's what's going on, but that's what's happening. So, so when you write your letter, I suggest, and again, you can do whatever you want. If you're like, you want to write an FU letter, and I wish you were dead, write that if that's really on your mind. Don't filter yourself, right? So we've been filtering ourselves to make our parents comfortable our entire lives. That's, that is the problem with trauma being suppressed in our bodies, is that we've been filtering ourselves our entire lives because we had to survive, but then we go into adulthood and we're still like, oh, I feel really bad. I'll just leave that part out. Or I'll just kind of dumb it down, gloss over. If you're going to write a letter, okay? If you're going to go through the trouble of, painstakingly writing that letter, then write the damn letter and lay it all out on the line, right? So, that stuff's been swept under the rug. And you can, lift up that rug and there's a pile under there that's been there. So go ahead and lay it all out on the line. That's what I would recommend. Don't filter and don't hold back, because you've been doing that your entire life. Don't make them comfortable. We silence ourselves to make other people comfortable, our family and our parents, so that they don't have to deal with their shit. That's over and done with, right? We're here to say, no, you know what? No more. So yeah, go ahead and write that letter. Get that out. Write that letter. Go ahead and lay it all out there, right? I would do it in a way that, is not like you did this or you did that. Not like pointing the finger accusatory, but say, Mom and Dad, the reason that, we're no contact right now is because the last time you came over, you threatened my safety and my child's safety, or my partner's, my spouse's safety, and that's not acceptable. And going back to my childhood, right? And you can list, whatever you want to list it out, right? And these things from my childhood that have never been acknowledged, that's unacceptable. It's not staying under the rug anymore. It's not acceptable, to live this way. If you're unable to acknowledge X, Y, and Z that happened in my childhood and maybe more recently as an adult. If you're not able to acknowledge the last time you did X, Y, Z, then we are not having a relationship, right? We're not having a relationship, and I need for you to not phone me, not email me, not text me, not call my spouse, my children, whatever it is. So you lay it out very, very succinct. I would recommend short. I would recommend in your adult self, okay? So your adult self is boom, 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 X, Y, Z, boundaries. This is what needs to happen. In order for us to have a relationship, I need you to do X, Y, Z. Are you willing to do that? Right? If you're not willing to do that, then, adios. Hasta la vista. That's the end of that. Not happening. Not happening on my watch. Life is for living, and we're done with this. We're done with this role-playing game. Right? Done. Over. And then that's what you do. So you keep it like super, because that's coming from an empowered adult, your healthy adult self. This is what's unacceptable. This is what's unacceptable recently, right? Because they're still acting like 12-year-olds. This is recently you did X, Y, Z. That's unacceptable. Going back to my childhood, you did X, Y, Z. That's unacceptable. And if you truly want a relationship, this is what needs to happen, X, Y, Z. You need to get sober, you need to get clean, you need to go therapy or whatever. And even if they did that, it takes a long, long time. It's not like one therapy session, right? It's a long process. And then you need to X, Y, Z, and I need to see actual change, acknowledgement. You need to acknowledge these things that happened in my childhood. Because here's the thing. Even if they don't remember, and they might not, that's valid, okay? Even if they don't remember, they would still need to say, you know what, that's not my recollection, but if you're saying that happened, then I believe you, right? That's what they need to say, okay? Or whatever it is. That's what needs to happen. So you lay it all out there really, really strong, coming from your empowered, healthy adult self that is writing the letter, okay? The wounded child self is the one that's going to be that wounded child that's going back, please love me, please love me, I need you, please acknowledge me, I need you to be the parent that I never had. That's the wounded child, still looking for that validation, going back to a place where you'll never get it, right? So if you're going to do this, do it from your healthy adult self. And so do you guys understand the difference between healthy adult and wounded child? Let me know. Do you guys have any comments, questions about that? Writing a letter. I recommend, if you can, again, keeping it short and sweet, because they're not going to read. They don't have the capacity to get through it. They're not going to read it all. And here's another thing you could do. You could take the long letter and write whatever the heck you want. If you want it to be 10, 20 pages, you could do that, and don't send that one. Then take that long form letter and try to sync it up into 1 or 2 pages, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 pages maximum that you could send them that one. So you do your long form if you want that to be like 10 pages, and just, word vomit it out, and then maybe just keep that one for you, and then take that and make it into a succinct, digestible, healthy adult self that you're sending, that you're actually mailing or emailing or whatever, however you're going to send it. And if you are going to send it, because again, they're not going to read that, because it hits their pain point, right? That's why they're doing their thing. So they can't deal with that. They can't, and they will do whatever it takes to not have to deal with that. Unfortunately, they will do whatever it takes to not have to deal with that. Unfortunately, that's the reality of it. So if you can take it and just make it succinct. So if you're going to send it, if you guys want to take it a step further and get it certified so that you know that they got it, because again, if you're going to have those parents that are possibly ignoring, right? And again, being honest, did they most likely got the letter? Yeah, they most likely got it. And they most likely threw it in the trash and maybe unopened, right? That's a possibility. So if you have those kinds of parents, instead of wondering, wishing, and possibly hoping, again, getting into the fantasy, wishing and hoping, well, maybe they didn't get it. The more likely scenario is they did get it and they threw it out or they didn't read it, right? So if you wanted to, but either way, even if you have the parents that are going to blow up and tell the whole town what a terrible person you are, even, if you wanted to take it a step further and get certified mail and mail it, so verifying that they got it, or if you guys have an email that will notify you that they received it and opened it. I'm trying to think not all emails, I don't know. There should be an option to, if you wanted to send it via email, that there's a way that that they received it and also opened it, okay? Or at the very least received it. You could do that with, I believe most emails have that option to do that. Or if you're going to actually mail it in the mail, you get it certified, you could do that. That way, if you guys have any doubt, that takes care of it. I would highly recommend doing that, especially if you're someone that is going to ruminate on that, right? If you're going to ruminate on that, I would highly recommend taking a step further and go ahead and get it certified, or put the email notification that they received it and opened it. Okay. Or have somebody else hand deliver it if you want, or put it in their mailbox, right? So if you have another family member or your spouse or partner that would be willing to drop it in there, if they're local, or somewhere, whatever, going and dropping it off, putting it in their mailbox, right? That's another option, possibly. Yeah, so do you guys have any questions about that or anything else for that matter? Ask away. Let me just see if there was anything else I wanted to add to that. Let's see. Questions? Have you guys written a letter? And I wholeheartedly believe in getting it out. And I recommend that for clients to, even if you're not into the letter thing, that's okay. You might be saying, well, that's not really for me. That's not my thing. I don't want to do that. And that's totally fine. Or the reaction and you're like, it's pointless. A lot of people think it's pointless to write a letter. And that's valid too. I do highly recommend, and writing though, definitely to get it out and not send it, but you're doing it for yourself, right? So you're really doing it for yourself, because we wanted to be seen and heard as a child, and here we are as an adult still not being seen and heard, right? And isn't it all we wanted, to be seen and heard, and we're still not getting that acknowledgement, right? As an adult, that's very painful and it hurts, right? And so I do recommend writing something. Hi, Wilson. Even if it's just for yourself. Or, if you guys have a therapist that you could process it out with, I do that with clients as well. We process it out because it has to be processed somehow, because we want to be seen and heard. And it's like, nobody's available for that. Nobody's available to say, hey, you did this. You did this to me, right? And these things happened, and why are you denying it, right? You get angry. That's anger. So you want to get that out and process it, because anger that is suppressed is very damaging to the body. I believe that's the number one damaging thing to the body is anger. And a lot of clients come and say, I'm not angry. But what in fact has happened, the anger is so suppressed that they have internalized the anger against themselves. And that's often what I see is the anger internalized, blame, criticizing, self-blame, self-critical, just internalized anger can show up in a lot of different ways that doesn't look like, anger blown up outwards rage, right? But it's very, very important to process anger. It's one of the most damaging things to the body. Okay, damaging, very damaging. So that's why I believe, and I highly recommend that even if you don't want to send the letter because you think it's pointless, and it might be because they're not going to read it, and maybe they're going to throw it away and they're not going to respond, write for yourself. It can be very cathartic. And again, just getting out exactly how you feel. And so I have my clients do this exercise, and then we process it together, because I'm creating that space to be seen and heard. And that's really what we want from our parents, but we're not going to get it. They're not capable, right? Does that make sense? Do you guys have any questions on that? I can't find the... I was gonna find this letter template that I have, and now I can't find it. Hold on a second. If you guys are on my email list, I sent a letter template a while back as an example. And the template had, it was basically a template that could start you off with a letter, a possible, one. Again, you guys could do whatever you want, but just as a letter to start you off on, if you need help with writing, kind of writing it out. Like I said, the best way to do it is short form, very blunt, short to the point is the one that if you're going to send it. And then if you want to do something for yourself that's longer, you can do that on your own, right? Because they're not going to read it. And if you guys are just joining, let me know if you guys have questions. I was saying, out of the hundreds of people I've worked with and thousands of people in the group and people I've talked to and whatever, unfortunately, the sad part is there has not been one single time that any parent has said, hey, I got your letter and I'm willing to go to therapy, or yes, these things happened and I feel really bad about it and blah, 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 blah. Not one time. And I just want to, I want to say that because this stuff is so hard, and it makes it even harder. The trauma happened, and then the secondary traumas keep going, and the trauma train keeps going because they're never acknowledging it. And so a big part of what I do in the therapeutic setting and space and relationship is processing a lot of the stuff that never got processed, number one, and is never going to get processed with the people that you really need to process it with, right? So if a parent, and most of the time we're just looking for acknowledgement, like, hey, just acknowledge this, and then let's repair, right? There's always room for repair. Repair can happen at any time, but repair cannot happen when there's no acknowledgement. Somebody's got to acknowledge something first. Repair can't happen without acknowledgement, right? Okay, let me put my glasses on here. Amanda says, you've written many letters to your father. You've never sent any to him. Okay, sent one to his mom due to nonstop pushing me. Oh, to be in his life. Yeah, from the pushback. Yeah. Okay, so that's actually really good. Was it well received? Yeah, it's not really well received. I'm glad that it helped you though. Yeah, so again, if you're going to do the letter thing, it's going to be really for you. It's not for them. So making sure that it's for you. It's not for them, because it can be cathartic. And again, if you have the emotional and mental stability to handle the backlash or to handle no response, because that's also equally as painful, right? So if you want to just get it out there and you don't care what happens, great, do that. If you're worried or you're not sure, or you don't think you have the emotional capacity right now to deal with the backlash, then I would recommend not doing it right now. And that's valid, okay? So it's all valid. Keeping these things in mind and then going from there, okay? Lots of options. So that's the thing, as an adult, you have options. You didn't have options as a child, but you do have them now, right? So that's that. Remember to come from the healthy adult. You have options. You have choices. You didn't as a child, but you do now. And so do what works for you and go with that. And again, you're doing it for yourself. You're really not doing it for them, because they're most likely not gonna respond or not respond well. Okay, any other questions or comments about that? Yeah. It's a really important topic and subject that that comes up a lot in the group. And it might, again, if you don't want to do it now and you want to do it down the road, that's great. When you have more, you have some more emotional capacity and stability to handle the backlash. That's what I help my clients with. We get into a good place in the nervous system. And then you have more space for, because we're building space and capacity for that healthy adult self to come forward and say, okay, yeah, I'm in my empowered, healthy adult place, and I can handle whatever's coming my way, and I'm ready for it, right? And that makes things a lot. The emotional stability changes everything, because that's when you're in a good, resilient place to deal with reality. And the reality is that they're not going to acknowledge anything, and that has to be the first step. There's no going anywhere else. You can't go anywhere else without acknowledgement, right? Okay, anybody have any questions? If you guys are interested in nervous system and somatic work, I have a couple of places open one-on-one for March. Starting in March, just reach out to me, PM me, and we can set up a chat. It's a free consultation. We can just see if it's a good fit. Okay, so if you think you might want to do that, or find out more, just message me, okay? And if you guys are watching the replay, type replay, and if you have a question, I will come back and answer your question. All right, you guys, have a great weekend. I'll see you later.